What's going on, workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And many of you have said, hey, can you get your podcast on MP3 format? And we can say we already do. So,
Yeah, but Brian,
you know,
how big of a deal would we have to be on Spotify?
well, not that big of a deal because they'll let any any of us on Spotify.
We're already on Spotify.
So, guys, if you like your podcast on Spotify or any place MP3s can be found, links are in the description. Top link in the description below, so you can go subscribe if you want. And check out the MP3 audio version of the long form content. So we'd hope that you guys go and give it a listen and let us know what you think. If you like the show, rate it high. If you don't like the show, just mosey on and don't tell anybody. Let's just call it how it is. Like, dislike, you do you. All right. So today this is kind of a joke that was tweeted out, but it's a fun discussion. I'd love to get you all's thoughts on this. Let's go ahead and jump to the tweet because the question is, stop rating in Final Fantasy XIV. This is Crime Bun sending this out. Obviously, this tweet going very far and very wide, and it's a joke, guys. So before anybody's sitting here just like getting enraged, but there's like in any joke, I think there's truths, and I want to kind of talk about this concept, the truth that is in this humor, and get y'all's thoughts about the state of rating in Final Fantasy XIV. It says Final Fantasy XIV was not supposed to be more than a dress-up game with a plot. That in and of itself, that's where I if I was drinking milk, it would have snorted out of my nose. Years of raid progression, yet no real-world use found for doing more than just an expert roulette. That is kind of a sick burn, because I think it's kind of true. Anyway,
I don't know why you're doing expert roulettes.
Yeah.
Take this way further.
That's what noobs.
You can do every instance in the game one time and be done.
By your third expansion, you're like, fool me 3 times. No, thank you.
Call it a roulette. It's a coin flip. There's only 2 instances in there.
Yeah. Have you played roulettes?
I said that on stream the other day, and they go, "There's 2." They thought it was just
the one. Anyway, you wanted to...
Whoa. That's way more content than I thought it was getting.
Exactly. You wanted to do more anyway for a laugh? Well, we had a tool for that. It's called Japosing. And that's how I pronounce it, by the way, Japosing. And then, yes, please hold your trick attack until the 6.55th GCD, so it aligns with the transition period 2 minutes and 52 seconds in. Statements dreamed up by utterly deranged. And then look at that what the Raiders have been demanding the respect for all this time with parsing tools that we have given them. And so obviously a call out to parsing.
I mean,
they have played us for
6.5 globals over 2 minutes and 52 seconds. The globals are slow in this game.
Yeah.
There are more than 6.5 over the first 3 minutes of a fight.
But the call out is as soon as you're getting ready to like push forward, it goes into this dramatic cutscene and you're flying around and you're doing all this stuff. And you're like, dadgummit. And that's honestly, I never blame the game for that. I blame me because sometimes
the intermissions are so long, 30 seconds. I don't care what kind of a Nokian or whatever you want. We are going to push you to the 9s. Oh, your Storm's Eye fell off? That's what you get.
I often wonder about like Final Fantasy Analytics because I've been working on practicing. I've been Red Mage will be coming out pretty soon. I'm going to be refreshing that. And then with that, it's like, oh, keep your GCDs up. And I'm like, oh,
I don't know. So like some of the parsers in WoW over the years have been smart enough to when there is inactivity for more than a certain number of seconds, it cuts that segment out. It says, hey, that's not real.
Right.
Clearly you weren't able to do something.
Mm-hmm. Or you're dead. And that's what I wonder. I'm like, does it think I'm dead right now?
Well, if you ever do die in content and you parse it and upload it to Final Fantasy logs and then push it to XIV analysis for it to announce, the top mistake it says is like, of all the things you can correct, the first one is always maybe don't die. Like maybe don't do that. That was bad.
Yeah. Anyway, like the reason why I think this is just kind of a fun post and it's such a funny tweet in that regards is because it kind of builds up with the last 2 videos that we're talking about, the gear treadmill and our ideas for doing and upgrading the relic system to kind of keep its relevance expansion over expansion. If you guys haven't seen those, just go look at any like playlist or whatever. It's yesterday's video, so go enjoy that and let us know what you think about it. But at the core of it is Final Fantasy XIV, a dress-up game. Chris, let's break it down point by point.
I think first, this whole thing is a joke about the disconnect between the different ways people play the game.
Okay.
There are people who say glamour is the true end game.
Right. Ugh, I hate that.
And until I saw a pig suit, I had not a single piece of glamour equipped to my character.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see the point.
Yeah.
It all looks fine. I might as well get something new from time to time, so it kind of changes itself up naturally. Mm-hmm. It all naturally kind of matches when I get all the gear from the same tier. I don't really see the appeal in picking an appearance that looked kind of cool 2 appearances ago more than this one. Like, it just seems like too much work. I have to go to an inn, I have to make a plate, I have to use little prisms. It's not really, I can be a pig? Like, that was immediate. Like, how do I stop everything I'm doing and become pig? So, like, from the get-go, it's just a joke laughing on people, but like, there is an awful lot of dressing up. There's an awful lot of glamour. This might be a dress-up game. The number of times I've gone into a new player stream and they're progressing through story, and I'm like, I feel like I've seen them streaming every day this week. How are they still in 2.0? They started 2.0 at the beginning of the week. They play 8 hours a day, 32 hours. Shouldn't they be done with 2.0? And then I click on their stream and it's like, so do I go with the blue dye or the red dye? Oh, I think I might have identified how they are not progressing through story.
Yeah, so glamour is the true end game. Really is my kryptonite phrase.
Mid-game.
Well, mid game or beginning game, like it just like
game.
It just frustrates me as a player, and I'm not gonna sit here and say that people are doing that wrong. They're not. Like, play the game the way you want.
Have a blast.
In that regard,
look awesome doing it.
It's not me. I haven't I'm like, all right, I find something sometimes. I'm like, I'll switch that out. It's not a big deal. So where I had my Chris moment,
Still the cowboy hat.
Well, I can't do that. I'm waiting. Come on, Square. Like that's. We would always get frustrated at people would be like, can I glamour this in this color and on this curtain?
There is a cowboy Roth hat.
There is a cowboy Roth hat now? Because like I need that.
I saw it on some streamer the other day. It's a different cowboy hat.
I need dadgummit, did you not ask said streamer? That's all I want in this game is a cowboy hat.
No, it was before I saw you making a thing out of it.
All right. Chris failed me, guys. Hashtag Chris
They said
failed.
howdy during every. I think it was Jesse Cox had it. I think he said howdy during every.
Jesse Cox is playing a freaking lion and a Hrothgar with a cowboy.
He probably has a unique cowboy hat that only he can have.
F that guy. All right, so outside of cowboy hat, Brian, I'm gonna derailing a little bit. My other moment was when like I would always kind of be like, like just pick a race. Who cares, right? And then it's like then they release a Hrothgar. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in. If they made that race at the start, I would have been there. Chris, you got to look up that cowboy hat for me while I vamp for a little bit.
I know.
Maybe
it wasn't him. Maybe I'm just throwing him under.
Well, yeah, we just threw Jesse. Who cares? I think he's well he's well known. Like it's like, oh no, sick burn at Jesse Cox.
He's like, I play a Lala.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my god. Anyway, so at the core of it, like, who cares if it's a dress-up game or not? Like, I think essentially where I wish gear was more relevant. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, glamour is not my true end game. Like, it's not the reason why I play this game. There's reasons why I play this game that, like, are against the terms of service of the game right now, just because the game doesn't offer that. I'm excited for PvP. Like, there's other things that I get out of the game. But I have to say, I'm utterly impressed by the sheer amount of options that players have, by the visual aesthetics that the game offers, the dying and everything that it brings together. Like, I've seen it in other games, and outside of the being able to recall any piece of gear that you have collected, I think the only detrimental fact about our dress-up game, Final Fantasy XIV, is how they manage the memory with the with inventory and things like that, because it then the dress-up game creates a massive need on the inventory, and I just think that I would love to see them make a change to that. You update me as soon as you've got it, because I want to move.
It's in your Discord.
Oh, thank you. You're the legend, dude. All right.
Mid-video here.
Cowboy hat coming in soon.
Cowboy hat coming in fast.
All right. So raid progression.
Prepare yourselves.
Yet that you don't need raid progression, because you can pretty much just get everything you need with the tomes. That's really what the second line says. Expert light, whatever. Just as with your tomes, you're keeping right up. So there's no need for raid progression. What do you think there?
I mean, if you're willing to wait long enough, you could just log in at 5.0 and then wait for 5.55 and then get the catch-up gear.
Yeah.
Just go straight through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that ties into the gear treadmill. Like, as long as you're aware that gear is going to be like competitive, you're going to be at the head of the line. You're the early adopter. Early adopters get screwed. Like, let's just, you bought an Xbox at launch? Cool. Guess what? In 2 years, they're cheaper. Like, that is just the trend in that regards. Now,
and week 1 of Call of Duty, who had issues in our group playing Call of Duty? The people who bought Series X's. Week 8 after the Series X's have been out, who's still having problems with Call of Duty? The people in our group that bought Series X's. The people who spent the most money are having the worst experience week in, week out.
Yeah. My loading time's better, though. So if it crashes,
when you load into the game,
yeah, when I load
the other times you load back onto your homepage. And you're like, oh,
okay.
get in.
What happened? I'm dead. It died. And that's also probably just Activision. So regardless, anyway. So at the core of it, like as long as you understand that you're on a gear treadmill, it's no big deal. You know, that like okay, if you're shocked by it, and this is not your first expansion with Final Fantasy XIV, you might need to look in the mirror because clearly something's just going right over your head. Like, oh, they did this to me once. They're not going to do it to me again.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's the pattern. That's the model. It actually, there's pros and cons, right?
Somebody left a comment in one of our videos the other day saying that, like, have you ever tried just taking a break from dailies for like a full month?
Mm-hmm.
And when you take a break for a full month, you look down and you realize nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
My character didn't delete. I didn't get behind.
Yep.
Like, because people will quit WoW for the same reason. They'll go, I just hate how you have to do 57 world quests every day. Who said you needed to do that?
Yeah.
Like you said you need. Nobody told you to do this.
Oh, humans. I mean, excuse me, us humans. So, wanting to do more for a laugh, we have a tool for that. G-posing, in this regards, G-posing. There's a lot of people who get frustrated by G-pose.
Have you activated Explore mode once yet?
No.
Me neither. I've actually spent more than an hour watching more than one person do G-posing in streams.
Yeah.
But I've never activated it. Because somehow that's a waste of my time, but it's not a waste of my time to watch somebody else.
I use G-pose all the time, especially for intros and stuff for videos. Like I'll have them kind of repeat and I'll kind of frame it for the film. But outside of that fact, no. Like I'm glad. Am I glad the tool exists? Yeah. Am I glad they had Explore mode? Yeah. Would I have rather them allowed us just to go into the dungeon like it's its own zone? Yeah, hands down. But it's like, okay, well, you can do this, and it's a part of the system, so go nuts, have fun. I can wish all day for like crazy things that they could do.
It's a better solution than the duty recorder was.
Oh man, the duty recorder.
This whole video has just been a bunch of rabbit holes that were derailed.
Oh, it's we get a bundle.
This whole post is just it's just here to shape your day and just go, well, I don't know.
And that's where I was like, I'm not going to go through the comments on the post because the internet is the internet. And but at the core of it,
there's nothing about this that is meant to be taken seriously.
Right, and that's the problem is that when people are like, "Wait a minute," and
they're not mocking a particular creator or carrying their, it's fine.
It's all good. But the problem, like, I would love to see this have been posted on Reddit. Oh my god! I
will say it says with the parsing tools we gave them, nobody gave anybody parsing tools.
Yeah.
The game has actively discouraged parsing tools from day one.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who gave parsing tools to the raiders are the raiders. They built it for themselves and they created their own insular community where they can compare stats and optimize and have fun in their way. Just like the G-posers have their subreddits where they're posting the number of times on my Reddit I open it up and it's the first 4 posts, 3 of them are look at my new glam.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing if you're not part of that aspect of the community.
So, is raiding pointless? Should you stop raiding in Final Fantasy XIV?
Not any more so than playing Final Fantasy XIV. Like, it's still just a video game.
For me, I can say that,
and I mean that as a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't want this game to mean I don't want this game to be something people feel like they have to play. My biggest concern for content creators when they only cover one game is that what happens if they stop liking that game? I'm not concerned for them on day one. Everything's great. Mm-hmm. They're thrilled. What happens to these content creators when they've only been covering one game for 10 years and they've never taken a day off? Not one.
Oh God, what am I going to do? I'm just kidding. When you said 10 years, it's like, man, I can't believe it's been that long.
But you've been playing other games.
Oh, yeah, I think you have to.
What happens when you see, people said that about Ninja when he was only playing Fortnite at the time. Mm-hmm. Now you've seen him play all these other games on stream. That looks so much healthier than when he was only playing Fortnite.
Yeah, and the problem is that like we've even talked to creators, it's like, I don't think if I was a creator for 14, I would still be playing 14. It's like, that might
I'd play on launch.
Yeah, I'd play at launch, yeah. And then it's like,
regardless, no matter what. Can't be more excited.
I like what parsing has done for rating for me, because it's allowed me to make a new game out of it. Because I was like, all right, I ran the raid, I did that. Same thing with the dungeons and the expert roulette.
I won't turn the parser on week 1 of a raid. When we get new raids, I'm not going to turn it on week 1.
Oh, that's fine. I would just find that after learning and playing and stuff, it's created this whole new game for me to go and send dungeons. It's about this tracking my speed. Like, I just wish there was maybe something in that regards where, like, if we have a 4-man, we can say, hey, let's go speed run this dungeon and see how fast we can clear it, and then it just in the game just tracks it, right?
But I mean, if it's on my first week in a raid, it's just to get a baseline. I'm not paying attention to it. It's probably not even on my screen. It's probably dragged onto one of my other browsers, so I can upload it when I'm done, so I can go, okay,
we're good,
and that's where we're starting.
Yeah,
that's the score to beat. That way, when you go in week 2, it's like new high score.
New high score. So anyway, guys, these are just our musings, especially about this amazing post. I'll include a link in the description if you want to go read the comments made on it and for yourselves, or read it on your own, or retweet it, or do whatever you do on Twitter. Chris, any final thoughts before we wrap up this video?
No, just have fun playing your games, guys.
Yeah.
Like I hope whatever you're playing, even if it is the least popular game, there's somebody out there adores Fallout 76 today and has been playing it since launch day. And I am thrilled for that person. Go play your game your way. As long as you're not hurting somebody else, knock yourselves out, man. It's all meant to be equally worthless. It's all just for fun.
Just for fun. Anyway, guys, I love this post. Letting us know what you think. If there's also anything that you guys want us to react to or discuss, be sure to leave those in the comments below. Tweet at us or check out our Discord. But for Words of Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching. We hope you have a good one, and we hope to see you soon. But until then,
take care.